Welcome to the Chaos and Light podcast. I am your host, Angela Levesque, and on today's episode, I'm speaking with Corbie Mitleid, and we are talking about psychics, how to spot the frauds from the real deal, where they glean their information from, all sorts of things. I'm expecting a very fun conversation. This, as many of you listeners know, the Chaos and Light podcast is part of the Chaos and Light community, which is an online space for spiritual seekers to connect, expand, and inspire other like-minded people. So please check out chaosandlight.com for more information on upcoming events, guided meditations, and new articles out almost every week. When I return from this ridiculously short break, we will speak with Corbie Mitleid. Do you believe in synchronicity and synergy? That when people share, connect, and collaborate from an authentic space, amazing things can and do happen? Then check out the Chaos and Light community, an online space for spiritual seekers that supports personal growth and gives you a frequent touch point to stay connected to your spiritual core. Join a group, attend a gathering, be inspired by our muse feed, all in a politics-free, ad-free environment. So dive deep into your spirituality at chaosandlight.com. Connect, inspire, expand. Well, welcome back. We have Corbie Mitleid on today. She has always been the different one, a writer and visionary in a completely medical family. She's always made her own path rather than taking one cut out for her by others. Leaving an Ivy League university after 2 years, Corbie struck out to find joy and purpose, regardless of where she was told she ought to be. The path wasn't easy. Life became a roller coaster with no breaks, asking Corbie to survive divorce, abuse, poverty, and life-threatening illness. But through this all, she learned the value of the examined life. Today, Corbie brings a full toolbox to her job as a beacon of manifestation and vision for her clients, using her skills as a certified tarot master, psychic medium, past life specialist, and channel. Her career now spans the globe with clients worldwide. Well, Corbie, welcome to the Chaos and Light podcast.
It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, I'm excited because, the spiritual world has been my world for at least the last 15 years. I know many psychics, some wonderful, some not so wonderful. And so I think that this will be a really fun conversation to have with you. So let's start a little bit with, tell us about your background. I spoke to it a little bit in your bio there, but did you always know you had psychic gifts?
Oh, that's the 30-second elevator speech. When I was 9, I read a book called The Witch Family by Eleanor Estes. And instead of thinking, ooh, that's scary, or ha, 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 I thought, and your point is, I knew there was magic in the world and I wanted to go find it. Fast forward to 1973 when I was a senior in high school. And yes, my darlings, that does tell you how old I am. I was working part-time at Spencer Gifts, and they had the James Bond 007 tarot deck, and I bought it. I mean, we were all hippies then. You had your elephant bell-bottoms and your fringe jackets and your cards. Now, 5 years later, everybody else moved on to roller skates and disco balls. But I loved the story that the cards were telling. So for about 20 years, I read for friends. I learned to keep my ego out of the way to be a clear channel for the information. All of a sudden, in 1994, I could do hands-on healing and talk to dead people with no training. That's when the universe handed me my draft notice and said, hello, you're working for us. So I hung out my shingle part-time. Meanwhile, I had several different careers: actress, author, inspirational speaker, video producer, legal assistant, writer for a graphic novel series, executive recruiter, whatever I could find. But the psychic work was always on the side. 9/11, as we watched the towers burn, I turned to my husband and I said, I need to do this work full-time. People need to know there are other answers out there. He said, I believe in you, go do it. So for a year, I did this evenings and weekends while I worked for a woman who threw files at my head when she didn't like what I told her. After a year, I knew I could make a living at this. I said goodbye to the corporate world, and I have never looked back.
So in your bio, you say that you came from a medical family. How do they view what you do? Do they accept you? Did it take a while?
Well, it depends. My father's dead, and he was the one who kind of knew what his daughter did. So when I do medical intuitive work, he will very often come down, especially if it's cardiac, because he was a cardiologist. My mother was an RN. She passed long before I really got into this. My brother is a doctor who does not believe in what I do. He tells people that I am a motivational speaker. So he knows what I do, cannot accept it. I don't push it. So, all of us have places where we're accepted and where we're not, even though we may be loved there. It doesn't mean we shouldn't follow our path.
I like that. My parents, I came from a very strong Christian Baptist background. And so when I started doing more of this work, well, first I started with Reiki, and that was a very difficult thing. Like they still ask me, even though I've kind of moved beyond just Reiki as far as doing work in with the energy body, they still ask me, what is that again? Like it's just very difficult. And then when I started doing more in the intuitive, what I would call intuitive coaching, they would describe me as a mind reader. I'm like, well, that's not quite it either, but I appreciate that you're trying. So there's pieces of me that, if they were to listen to my podcast, which I don't think that they do, they would open that door, but I'm not sure that they want that door open. So
for all those heavy Christian evangelicals who say, y'all are doing the devil's work, I say, go read Acts chapter 2. Take notes, because that's where it says you can do what I do. Simple as that.
So what, and I have some really strong thoughts on this, but what are the benefits, do you think, for most people for seeing a psychic?
Sometimes we are dogs chasing our tail, and our egos are so involved in things that we can't get a straight answer. So if we go to someone who can be objective, but who maybe can reach for different books on different library shelves, if you will, it is useful. We are not the repairman. We hand you the toolbox. I say to my clients all the time, okay, here are your opportunities and how to grab them. Here's the tough stuff. Here's how to get through it or around it. Here's your toolbox. Go rock and roll. There are times when we're really good for you, and there are absolutely times that you should not go to a psychic. And both of those are talked about in my book, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road. The subtitle is How to Find the Real Wizards and Avoid the Flying Monkeys. And it's written not for people who want to be psychics themselves, but who want to be safe finding a good psychic, which is why the subtitle is Good Psychic Guidance is Art. Don't settle for a forgery.
So what would be some of those times that you shouldn't go see a psychic?
When you really don't want to hear the answer that we're going to give you. And, there is one in here that when my fellow psychics read this, they are on the floor, because it has happened to all of us. The client sits down with us. Does Bruce think about me? No. Has he ever thought about me? Not the way you want. If I do such and such, will he think about me? No. Well, is he going to call soon? He's not. Well, if he isn't going to call soon, he's going to call later. And the person is beating on the psychic every single way they can think of, hoping that the psychic will finally say, yes, he loves you and he wants 7 babies with you, but he just doesn't know it yet. Oh, good. I thought so. That's not why you come to us. We are here to help you find your answers, but we're not going to tell you what we do not see. On the other hand, I do advise that you stay away from yes or no questions. For instance, if you said to me, is my business going to be successful? I would look at you with my pickle face and say, and what if I said, no, you're going to lose everything and live in a box under a bridge? Wrong question. You ask what empowers you. So if you said, how do I take my new business from 0 to 60, or in Canada, 0 to 100? Because I've been an executive recruiter, I can do a deep dish tarot read, a card for you, a card for the energy around the business, the brick and mortar location, how to market it, clients, competition, staff, finances, what you need to know, and best possible outcome. Notice there's no yes or no there, but it's all the tools you need. You can back it with your passion and your free will, and you can make your business fly. That's the difference between a fortune teller, which I'm not, and an intuitive counselor, which I absolutely am.
What do you feel? This is something too that I don't enjoy it when people want me to tell them the future. And at least from my perspective, and I would love to hear yours, is that the future is not written. So to the extent that we are beings of habit and we get stuck in same, programs and thought constructs and stuff, there is a certain level of reliability that if you continue on the same path, the same things will happen. However, we are not just in this world by ourselves. There's other people. There's things co-creation happening. And so that idea that, where do you see me in a year? That to me is not the real value of going to see somebody who has psychic abilities. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, for one thing, you don't just sit down and I start blarging at you. I can't stand that. When you sit down with me, first thing I'll say to you is, what is the most important thing you want to walk out of here knowing? And if you go blank on me, I'll go very Brooklyn on you and say, darling, what's biting your butt? Because everybody has that one thing that flips things open. Where do I see you in a year? I'd say, where do you want to be? And let's see if you can get there. As far as fortune telling, look, if I see some things, I will tell you. But I remind people, even the best of us are only 85% accurate. The only one 100% accurate is God, and he doesn't have a booth at the Toronto show this year. People need to understand that. And because there are other people in our lives, I can't guarantee that they're going to do this. You have to be flexible. But the story that I love to tell about this, well, you may not like what I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you. There was a woman in Kitchener. I went up there 3 times a year for many years. And I saw a couple of tough things for her. And I told her, and she stands up and she says, you suck. And she walks away. Well, okay, fine. Who's the same person back in my chair the next time I'm up there? And she said, last time I said you sucked. I said, yes, I remember. Because you told me that I was going to take in a boarder. And then I was probably going to want to sell my house. And I thought that was all bull. But my daughter got pregnant and moved home. And now I'm going to sell my house because I want to raise my grandson right. And I still don't like you, but I want to know what else you say. Don't shoot the messenger. Jeez. So, was that telling the future? No, it was giving her an idea of what might be down the pike. Nobody said she had to let her daughter in. Nobody's telling her she has to sell her house. Those were possibilities, and she is acting on them. But that's still her free will.
Yes, I've had a few experiences. I remember going to see this. She's a wonderful psychic. And I sat down, and in the first couple of seconds, she's like, oh, we're here to talk about your mother. And I was like, shit, it's always about my mother. And then she continues, and there was a lot of things that she said. And to your point about not shooting the messenger, I knew that it wasn't about her, but there was just so many kind of triggering things that came up. And after I went home and I licked my wounds for a bit, and I thought, it was really like, it just broke things open for me. And it was quite a life-changing, transformational experience. And so I have gone back to see her several times, even though in that moment, being, I guess, confronted with some of the stuff that I wasn't, I guess, ready to look at. Yeah. I knew, I was like, I'm leaving and I'm trying not to be too grumpy because I knew it wasn't about her, but I was like, yes, thank you. Okay. And then after, having some time to process and integrate and do all of that, then I was like, oh, wow, that was really something. That was really powerful.
That is a reader that is very much like the late, great Allie Cheslick. Allie was a psychic medium down here in Albany, New York, and we often called her Chatty Cathy of the dead. And now that she's dead, she still is. It's like, you sit down with Allie, you push a button, and it just fell out of her mouth. That is not my reading style. I'm a much more to the point, practical. You're paying me for this amount of time. I want to stuff it with every single thing that you want to take home with you. For those people that can read like the one you went to in Allie, live and be well, baby. But that's one of the things about, you talk about how to choose a psychic. We all don't do the same thing, just like doctors don't have the same bedside manner. They don't have the same specialties. My friend Debbie Dyer, who is up in Ontario, great with a pendulum. Me, I have a slight benign tremor in one hand, so I don't trust it. My stuff, nobody flips tarot the way I do, and I'm a past life specialist. So that's why it's important that you know what you want to work with before you get to see the psychic. For instance, I am a medium. I talk to dead people. Debbie doesn't talk to dead people. So if you went up to her and said, I want to talk to my Aunt Dora, she'd point over to me, because we always shared a big booth at the First Star Psychic Tours. There's so many things that, if someone is aware of them, can get them the absolute best and most appropriate intuitive counselor that they could possibly want.
Are there different categories of psychic? So how would you know if you wanted to contact somebody who had passed? Who would you be looking for? What style or terminology?
You'd be looking for a medium. Now, all mediums are psychic, but not all psychics are mediums. What's the difference between a medium and a channel? Mediums specifically talk to dead people. Channels can be like Esther Hicks is a channel. Pat Rodegast was a channel with Emmanuel. Jane Roberts was with Seth. They are talking to discarnate entities, but they're not necessarily Uncle Harold. Okay. I am a past life specialist, but I am a past life retrieval person. Massive difference between retrieval and regression. Past life regression is where you get hypnotized and you go wandering around in the Akashic to see what you can find. Past life retrieval, which is what I do, is when you sit down with me and you say, why am I scared of Victorian China? And I go up to the Akashic, pull down the book and say, read chapter 2. The example I will give you for that is the work that I did with Robert Schwartz in his book series on Life Between Lives, Your Soul's Play and Your Soul's Gift and Your Soul's Love, which just came out. We were lecturing at Lilydale in New York, and a woman with butch short hair raises her hand and says, can you explain to me why I'm so terrified to get wet hair in my face, even one strand, and I hyperventilate? I said, okay. And it took me about 5 seconds, brought it down, and I said, okay, it's a 5-syllable answer, Lusitania. In 1915, you were on the boat when it was torpedoed. You were one of the passengers. You went over the side. You had not bobbed your hair yet. You still had the big Edwardian mass of hair, which took on a lot more water. And also it was long enough that it caught debris in it and it pulled you down and you drowned. I opened my eyes. She looks at me white-faced and she said, is that why I'm afraid to go on a cruise? I said, probably. Now, she didn't have to go and get hypnotized and relive that death. I did it for her. But the thing to remember, spirit adores what's already in the pantry. Remember I said I couldn't use a pendulum, but I was a history major at college. I'm a writer and an actress, and I adore history. My husband was a museum director for 23 years. So spirit knows if you come to me, I'm not going to tell you I see a long skirt and a big hat. It's old fashioned. I will be able to say, hobble skirt, picture hat, that kind of ostrich feather, and you're standing in front of the Brandenburg Gate. So I think it's Berlin in 1911. Which one's going to give you more information?
Well, that's interesting because I have always been a writer and I use automatic writing all the time. And I've been using it since I was in high school, even before I knew what I was doing. And that's interesting. I have an inclination for writing, so it would make sense that that's how I kind of get information. But, sure. Too, I'm not a very descriptive, like visual person. So again, I get ideas, I get shown like symbols, and then I can fill in that story. Like I'll see archetypes, I see things like that, and then I'm able to understand what that means. And so I enjoy that you said that because that makes a lot of sense to me. If you had to describe to people, how would you describe where you're gleaning information from? How does this work? Is this I'm part of consciousness, and so I tap into the field of consciousness? What is the language that you would use to describe?
I have no freaking idea what I do. I would just say, look, I got handed my draft notice by the boss. And you can see the boss, him, her, it, Ralph the Wonder Dog. I don't care. But I am the tube it comes through. And so I step aside and I basically say, okay, boss, I'm on the clock. And it comes down. I'll see a tarot card. And it may not be the standard meaning that you would read in Mary K. Greer's books. One of my favorite examples for that is the Three of Pentacles. Now, the Three of Pentacles in your standard deck shows a man working on some stained glass windows, and it's a church. And so it's supposedly mastery, it's supposedly the craftsman, things like that. Well, when I was up in Kitchener, I was reading for a couple, and that card came up. And oddly enough, what came out of my mouth without thought was, there is a deconsecrated or abandoned church that you guys keep passing, and that's where you need to open up a cafe bakery. They looked at each other, they looked at me, and they go, yeah, we know which one. We've been arguing for 2 years. I did not go, pawing around in their cerebellum. Spirit just said, tell them that. So that's where it is. Yes, I can get angels. Yes, I can get spirit guides. I can also channel people's higher self, their souls, for them. And when people get confused by that, I use what I call my audiovisual aid, which is your hand. So everybody listening, I want you to put your hand in front of your face, about, a foot away, palm towards you, and your fingers spread. Now, your palm is your oversoul. It is everything that you are. It's your higher self. But notice, it's a lot bigger than your fingers. So parts of your soul, chosen specially, come down and animate each incarnation. Those are the fingers. When you die, you drop the body. The personality gets hung up in the back closet upstairs, and you bring that information back to your soul. Because we're down here and we're totally into duality, a lot of people think they're completely separate from their soul. They can't possibly talk to them. I'm the one who can help them do that. Again, I didn't know I could do that until Robert Schwartz asked me to do it for his book. And I said, okay, boss, we doing this? And boss said, yeah, okay. So that's a very long-winded answer to, I take my direction from the boss upstairs in whatever form. I take my work very seriously, me not so much.
How do you spot a fraud from the real deal?
The Madam Hoo-Has and the Swami Swalandas of the world. Oh, yeah. Okay. Things that I warn people. And this is actually why I wrote the Psychic Elbert Road. This was one of those big shows in Toronto. There were 200 booths. And across the way, there was what I call the fake gypsy. They have the headscarf and the long skirt and the jingling jewelry, and they do bad accent and they can be gypsy. So this woman was walking between the aisles, and the fake gypsy runs out from her booth and grabs her. Now that's called hooking, and it's as bad as the other kind of hooking. But the gypsy says, oh, you knew me to $30, $40, $50. I read your palm for 10. Come to my booth. So drags the woman in. 20 minutes later, we see the woman hysterically crying, leaving. A bunch of us run over to see what happened. Apparently, the fake gypsy said, oh, you have a family curse. How many in your family? 4. You have dog? $50 every family member, $25 for a dog. He's small. We fix. And told the woman if she didn't burn 400 specially blessed candles at the Roman Catholic Church, I bless real good, only $1 candle. Her entire family's going to die in an accident 2 weeks. Fake, fake, fake. All right? Mm-hmm. The other thing is poachers. I do a free reading hour on my Facebook page once a month. Guarantee you that people will write their question, and someone, usually with a Nigerian name or something, will sneak in. I am drawn to have a wonderful reading for you. DM me for all the right information. And of course, if my clients online go do that, they're going to get the same thing. I have managed to train all of my people who come in for those reading sessions. They immediately write troll, admin, ban. So we take care of it that way. But fakes will upsell you all the time. They will always be telling people the same thing. They will cold read you. Oh, I'm getting someone who loves you from upstairs. Is your mom dead? No. What about your grandmother? Your aunt. Oh, it's your aunt. Wrong answer. They will be afraid to have themselves recorded. Now, me, you can't get out of my booth without a recording because you'll never remember everything. And if you're taking notes, you're not listening. And I talk fast like a New Yorker. So you'll get either a CD from me, or you can record on your phone, or when I record it at home, it's an MP3. They should never, ever tell you when you're going to die. That's between you and God. Okay? The best of us want to be of service. It's about you, not us. We admit that we are not 100%. And if we're not right for you, we'll tell you. There are times when someone sits down with me and I just ain't getting nothing. The connection is not there. I will say to them, I'm really sorry, Mrs. O'Brien, but I can't seem to read you. Let me give you your money back. You might want to try Judy Abbott across the way. She's really good. But we can also refuse to read you. Woman sits down with me and she says, I want to know where my husband is sleeping with his mistress. I said, I'm sorry, I don't do remote spying. Oh, well, can you tell me how many people he slept with? I don't do remote spying. Oh, all right. Well, listen, is he sick? Is he going to die soon and leave me any money? Laura, my fun person, I'm not really connecting with Mrs. Cooperson. Please give her money back, but I didn't suggest anyone else for her to go to. Okay. I mean, please do not treat us like a trained dog. If you stand in front of my booth, which has happened, and someone says, oh, I don't know, tell me something you couldn't know about me, and if you're right, I'll have a reading. I generally smile and say, I'm sorry. I don't roll over and fetch either. And I turn my back and they do not get to have a session with me. You got to realize it's a two-way street, guys. Mutual respect is what's going to get you the best reading from the best intuitives.
Yeah.
Complicated.
I find a lot of people, I think that you had said really at the beginning about finding the magic in life. And I find that some people go to see psychics because they want to have proof that inkling that they have inside, that there is something magical, that there's this beautiful mystery to life that isn't just something we can, use scientific method to figure out. And so I'll find that people will come to me because they're looking for that magic. And so they want to know, like, if you can prove to me that you know something that you couldn't possibly know, then it's okay for me to be okay, to indulge in some of those.
That I totally get and I agree with. It's the ones that have that smirk on the face, like, okay, perform. I'm sorry, I have too much self-respect. What I try to explain to people is you can do what I do. I'm not special. In fact, I lost a reality show deal because they wanted me to act like I was just the most amazing thing and there was nobody like me in the world. I said, I can't do that. One of the reasons my clients trust me is because I don't come to them and say my aura don't stink. I'm normal. I'm 66, postmenopausal, dealt with cancer 3 times. I'm just me. And we're all wired like the same house plan. So if you think you're getting stuff, it is entirely possible that you are. And baby, there are 8 billion people in the world and I can't read them all. So if you want to start doing psychic work, have at it. I will help you find what you need to do to start doing the work. I am never threatened by a whole bunch of other psychics. We're all different. We all have different specialties. I've been doing it for almost 50 years. Experience has to count for something.
Yes.
So, if someone says to me, I think I'm psychic, am I crazy? I'll go, honey, no, you're not. And I'll start giving them all the references that I know so that they can start finding the magic that we've found. God, there's enough of it for everybody.
So speaking of, if there is beginners who want to develop their skills, what are a few techniques or tools that they can use to kind of heighten those abilities?
All right. The first thing I tell you is you got to know how to ground, center, and shield. That's boot camp. And grounding is when you connect into the earth, you've got your balance. Centering is, you're like the gyroscope, the top that's spinning perfectly. And shielding is you put up that little energy egg so that you are not bombarded by all the stupid stuff around you. Now, there are 2 books that I always recommend to people. They're how I learned. And the first one is called Opening to Channel, How to Connect with Your Guides. It's by Sanaya Roman and Dwayne Packer. It's been around for 30 years. And it's how I learned. I was not born brilliant like this. Okay, it was a lot of trial and effort, but they are clear and compassionate, and their methodology is great. If you want to learn tarot, boom, right there. Tarot for Yourself by Mary K. Greer. Mary Greer is a tarot grand master, and this is the starting book for so many people. The other thing I would say is there is an organization called the Tarot Guild, Guild. You can find them on Facebook, and they have courses there and certifications, and there are people who are willing to help you. Don't think you have to do it all on your own. Do a little diligence. Make sure that you're not spending $60 million for someone who's going to be swigging down a beer while you just flip cards. Okay. But there are good teachers out there, and we want to bring on the next generation. We really do.
So do you think that you talked about Grandmaster or Grand Tarot Master. Are there certifications that people can use to get really left brain about this and dive into the study?
The 3 certifications that I have, number 1, I am an ordained minister through the Sanctuary of the Beloved, Order of Melchizedek. It's non-denominational. I got it for 2 reasons. Number 1, when you go south of the Mason-Dixon line in the United States, if they say, oh, you're doing fortune telling and that's satanic work, I can say, no, I'm doing pastoral counseling. Oh, we're really sorry, Reverend, you could write ahead. Kept me out of trouble many times. And the other was before same-sex marriage became the law in the United States. I had a lot of friends who batted for the same team. If they wanted sacred ceremony, I was going to give it to them. So that's one. There was a group called the Tarot Certification Board of America for many years. They're in hiatus now. But I'm a certified professional tarot reader through them. It was a 3-hour exam. Not just do you know the cards, but can you interpret spreads? Can you invent spreads? What's your code of ethics, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And there is currently the Tarot Guild, and I am a certified tarot master through them based on my years of work, my ability to teach, the books I've read. So yeah, when people see these certifications, they know that you didn't just buy a pack of cards on Amazon and you don't know what you're doing. You're not sitting there. There was one guy who used to be at the fairs with me, and he would pull a card and he'd read the book for people. No, you don't want to go there. You want to go to someone who really understands the depth and the nuance of the cards. And the other thing is, it's not just tarot cards. These days, there are so many wonderful oracle cards, which are invented by the person who designed the deck. And they can be used for so many different things. So go and find and play. Go see what rings your chimes. There is so much room out there, and there are so many different ways to be an intuitive now. Find what you're good at. Find what you love.
I actually suggest to people to maybe start with oracle cards, because I think that they're more forgiving in their interpretation, and I think that they spark a lot of introspection and reflection, which I think is a huge benefit of doing individual readings for yourself, is that you start to look at your own inner guidance. You start to become aware of how does this feel in the body? It kind of enhances a lot of our senses. And it also asks us to reflect on what's going on in our life and that sort of thing. And I think because the tarot has so much symbology and history, and there's a lot more stuff going on, that it does take study. You can't just flip a card and read the book and be like, oh, this is what that means. So would you agree with that?
I teach a course called Decadence. It's one where I can teach you to read any oracle deck you pick up within 5 minutes. And I do the oracle decks for precisely that reason. I'm sitting here with 8 decks, and I have things like a Ganesh deck, very compassionate. I have John Gray's Joy of Relationship, and this is about relationship and karma. I even have a children's deck. And for anybody who wants to read in person, I really do recommend that you get a child's deck, because you could be sitting in your booth at a show and a woman comes up to you and she didn't have any place to leave her kid. So you have this 5-year-old who's ritzing around in her chair, and she keeps going, "Mommy, mommy, 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 I want to pull a card." And the woman looks at you and says, "Oh, please, can my child pull a card? Just so Binky is happy." And you're going to say, what? "Oh, look, Binky, it's the death card. That's going to give the kid nightmares."
The Wheel of Fortune.
The deck I had, right. Well, but I use Tarot Illuminati by Eric Dunn, and that is one scary death card. The deck I have, this is Cat Wisdom, and it has little cute things like there's curiosity. It has a kitten looking at a frog, and there's tenderness, and there's a mommy cat and a kitten. The kid will not be afraid of these. So the kid can pull a card, you can interpret, and the mother is grateful, and then you go on with a serious reading. These are just tips for if you are serious about wanting to do this as a business, and that's what my third book is about.
Yes, I am a little bit of a hoarder of cards. I had to decide when we came to Japan. I'm like, okay, well, I can't take all of these decks, so I just have to really prune it down to like 5 or 6. And I'm actually, right after our conversation today, I'm teaching a beginner's class called Tools of Divination, where I use the pendulum a lot, and we are talking about oracle decks and automatic writing and introducing these ideas, because I totally agree with you. Like, I do think that it takes, just like anything, if you wanted to be a bodybuilder or a marathon runner, it takes time, and there's ways to hone your skills. And it's not just something that you drop into and be like, boom, this is me, and I can, do this work. Look, just like everything, it requires perseverance.
We've all got 10 fingers. Everybody can play chopsticks, but it takes work in order to play scales and really get good. 1 in 10 million is Elton John. We're not saying you're going to be the Elton John of the tarot, guys, the minute you pick it up. So, don't go there.
So do you have a team? I know a lot of psychics that have their spiritual team that they work with. Do you have a team?
No, that is very much spiritualist stuff. And that's your door opener and things like that. I know people that have those. I do have my own higher guide, but when I do this work, I'm hearing your people talking through me. I'm just the megaphone. So guides that I've had, people that I flew with in World War I 100 years ago, 2 lives ago, they were my first guides here in the 80s and 90s. I now work with my own particular angel, Baruchiel. Sometimes, as I said, when I'm doing a medical intuitive reading, my father will come in. I laugh and joke and say he still does consults. But that's really about it. I don't have anybody formal, because what I do is I simply open up and invite your folks to come in so that I can tell you what they want to tell you that they may not be able to get across.
So last question, you talked about doing past life work. What is the value, do you think, in, because I find there's 2 things that people really want to know when I work. What is the name of my spirit guide? And what lives have I lived in the past? And, I think that there's obviously value in both, but I think that the way that sometimes we approach those ideas is more out of curiosity than it is actually appreciating the value.
That's right. All right. Very, very quickly. I will remind people that spirit guides grow and change as you do. You don't have the same teacher from kindergarten to PhD. It's your angel that is your assignment from birth to death. They have your name in the back of their tunics like camp tags. I belong to John. As far as knowing your past lives, please don't come to me and say, I think I was Anne Boleyn because I can't wear a turtleneck. It doesn't work like that. And I don't go find past lives for entertainment value. The work I do is much more serious than that. If you have a life challenge, why did I get cancer? Why did I decide to parent handicapped children? Why do I have an addiction? Why do I have abandonment issues? Then we do past lives. I gave you an example of a quick one that I did at Lilydale. But don't just look at me and say, oh, I don't know, find me a life. Because the reason we don't remember all 100 is we'd sit and watch like a movie. We wouldn't be living now. But if you have a past life where I've always been confused, why was I born into a Jewish family? I never felt right. And then we do deep dish work and we find 2 lives ago, you were an anti-Semitic German. Ding. That's why you need to know. And if you look in Robert Schwartz's books, especially Your Soul's Plan, that is my favorite of the 3, you're going to see how past lives illuminate what's going on in this life so that you can handle it better, with more compassion, more resilience, and more imagination.
Is there ways to heal? So you find out that you were anti-Semitic in a previous lifetime. Is there a way other than just having that piece of information? What do you do with it?
You learn from it. I'm the only one who's ever been in Rob's books from both sides of the fence. I'm one of his channels, and I'm also a woman called Doris in his physical illness chapter. I came in specifically to learn how to treasure being a female and being in a female body and not using sexuality as a bargaining chip. And sometimes people get it right away. That's when they get gut force. And then there's stubborn idiots like me, and I did double major plus lab. I got cancer twice. I still hadn't learned my lesson. My higher self said, look, we really need you down there to learn what you need to learn and to teach for us. So we're going to remove the problem. So I got a 3rd bout of breast cancer, but it was a 2nd primary, turning the danger clock back to 0. But it's still double mastectomy. They took the ovaries, and I went from a literal Dolly Parton as a brunette figure to a fat fire plug with permanent side effects. And that was 16 years ago. And as a result, understanding why that happened, it's not, oh, poor me about the cancer. It's, damn, maybe I can learn better next time, but I teach with what happened and why. It's called living the examined life. So that I can bring this information and other people going through hell, stop having a pity party and say, what can I learn from it? How can I teach with it? What's next?
I like that. Well, I want to thank you so much for coming on. I like to give a little moment here for you to share how my listeners can get in touch with you, where they can find your books, all of that good stuff.
Oh, well, they can't avoid me. You can find all 3 of my books, Clean Out Your Life Closet, The Psychic Yellow Brick Road, and You've Got the Magic Who Needs a Genie, all at Amazon. You can find me at my website, CorbieMitleid.com. You can find me on Facebook at Fire Through Spirit, Twitter, Pinterest, Instagram, YouTube, all under Corbie Mitleid.
All right. Well, thank you so much. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I think we left my listeners with a lot of good tips on how to find the real deal.
It was a pleasure. Thanks for asking.
Well, we will be back after this ridiculously short break. Are you enjoying this podcast and want to help this lady out? Well, share it with friends, or even better, leave a review on iTunes. We'd love to hear from you. Now back to the show. Well, that is it for today's episode. Coming up next on the Chaos and Light podcast, we are blending spirituality, consciousness, and venture capitalism with Charlie Hartwell and Marie Pelton. Well, take care and seek the mystery.